In the blistering heat of an ancient morning, two armies stood frozen in silence, staring across a dry, sun-scorched valley. On one hill, Israel, weary and fearful. On the other, the Philistines, proud and unyielding. And between them, an echoing challenge from a single man, so immense, so fearsome, that the bravest warriors of Israel could not bear to look upon him without trembling. The Bible calls him Goliath of Gath. And the champion went out from the camp of the Philistines, named Goliath from Gath, whose height was 6 cubits and a span. He had a bronze helmet on his head, and he was armed with a coat of mail, and the weight of the coat was 5,000 shekels of bronze. 1 Samuel chapter 17, verse 4 to 7. This was not merely a battle, it was a test of faith, a test that would shake the very heart of a nation. The armies had been locked in this tense standoff for 40 long days. Each dawn, the Philistine giant would stride into the valley, his footsteps like thunder, his spear glinting in the sunlight like a shard of the sun itself. With a voice like the roar of a lion, he would call out to Israel's warriors, "Why have you come out to line up for battle? Am I not a Philistine, and you the servants of Saul? Choose a man for yourselves and let him come down to me. If he is able to fight with me and kill me, then we will be your servants." 1 Samuel chapter 17, verse 8 to 9. But no man moved, not Saul, whose stature had once inspired courage, not the seasoned captains who had faced countless enemies. The valley became a place of fear, a place where faith seemed to waver. Yet, far from this valley of fear, in the quiet hills of Bethlehem, a young shepherd tended his father's sheep. His hands were calloused not from wielding the sword, but from the sling and the staff. His nights were spent under the endless canopy of stars, singing psalms to the God of Israel. His name was David. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. Psalm 23, verse 4. David knew nothing yet of the giants who taunted his people, but God knew, and the Almighty was already preparing his warrior. On that day, Jesse, David's father, called him from the fields. "Go to your brothers on the battle line," he said. "Bring them food and bring back word of how they fare." It was a simple errand, but in God's plan, it was the first step towards destiny. And so, with a shepherd's pouch, a sling, and the faith that had been forged in solitude, David set out for the Valley of Elah, where the shadow of Goliath loomed. The armies waited, the giant waited, and the Lord watched. The boy who had only known the quiet battles of the wilderness was about to face the loudest roar of his life. The valley was alive with the sound of armor clanking, shields scraping, and whispered fears moving through the Israelite ranks. From the hill's crest, David saw it for the first time, the sight that had paralyzed an army for 40 days. There he stood, the giant, a man so tall the horizon seemed to shrink behind him. His armor gleamed like molten fire under the sun, and the shadow he cast stretched long over the dusty earth. David slowed his steps, not from fear, but from awe. He had heard stories of mighty warriors, but none compared to the presence of this Philistine champion. Then it came, like a rumble rolling from the depths of the earth, Goliath's voice. And the Philistine said, "I defy the armies of Israel this day. Give me a man, that we may fight together." When Saul and all Israel heard these words, they were dismayed and greatly afraid. 1 Samuel chapter 17, verse 10 to 11. Goliath's taunts were not just challenges to a duel. They were an insult to the God of Israel, and David's heart burned within him. He turned to the soldiers nearby. "Who is this uncircumcised Philistine," he asked, "that he should defy the armies of the living God?" Then the men around him stared. This was no seasoned warrior speaking, but a boy from Bethlehem, And yet, there was something in his voice, a certainty that cut through the haze of fear. Whispers spread through the camp, a youth bold enough to speak against the giant. Soon, the message reached the tent of King Saul. The king summoned David. David stepped forward into the presence of Israel's ruler. He bowed, then spoke with steady eyes. "Let no man's heart fail because of him. Your servant will go and fight with this Philistine." 1 Samuel chapter 17, verse 32. Saul studied the shepherd boy before him, clothed in nothing but simple garments and carrying no sword. "You are not able to go against this Philistine," said Saul, "for you are but a youth, and he a man of war from his youth." But David's reply was unlike anything the king had heard. "Your servant kept his father's sheep," David began. "When a lion or a bear came and took a lamb, I went out after it and struck it and delivered the lamb from its mouth. The Lord who delivered me from the paw of the lion and the paw of the bear, he will deliver me from the hand of this Philistine." Saul leaned back. This was no reckless boast. David spoke as one who had already walked with God through danger. The king's expression shifted. He nodded. "Go," Saul said, "and the Lord be with you." The giant's shadow still loomed over the valley, but it no longer seemed as great, for David did not see Goliath compared to himself. He saw Goliath compared to the God of Israel. The armies prepared for another day's standoff, but this day, the standoff would end. The tent was still heavy with the scent of oil and the dim glow of lamp fire when Saul rose from his seat. If the boy was truly going to face the Philistine, he would not go empty-handed. The king motioned to his attendants. "Bring my armor," Saul commanded. Bronze plates gleamed as they were set before David. Armor forged for a king, for the tallest man in Israel. They draped the coat of mail over the shepherd's shoulders. They strapped the sword at his side. The weight pressed upon him like a millstone. David took a few steps. The armor shifted awkwardly. The sword hung heavy at his hip. He felt the cold touch of the bronze against his skin, the creak of leather straps. He looked down at his hands, hands that had never gripped a warrior's blade, but had held a sling under the open sky, hands that had written psalms and rescued lambs. At last, he turned to Saul. "I cannot walk with these," David said, "for I have not tested them." He removed the armor piece by piece, until once again he stood as he had entered, a shepherd, unarmored, unshaken. "Not by might, not by power, but by my spirit, says the Lord of hosts." Zechariah chapter 4, verse 6. David left the king's tent and descended towards the brook that cut through the valley door. The water murmured softly over the stones, a sound far gentler than the shouts of men. He knelt and searched among the smooth riverbed stones until he found 5, perfectly rounded, fitting in his palm like they had been shaped for this very day. One by one, he placed them into the leather pouch at his side. The sling, worn smooth from years of use, hung from his hand, a simple strip of leather and cord. It was not the weapon of kings, it was the weapon God had given him. And he rose. The sounds of the two armies swelled in the distance. Philistine laughter, Israelite murmurs. Yet David's heart was ready. He did not carry a sword, he did not carry a shield, but he carried the name of the Lord Almighty, the God who had delivered him before and would deliver him again. Some trust in chariots and some in horses, but we will remember the name of the Lord our God. Psalm 20, verse 7. The shepherd stepped from the brook, 5 stones in his pouch, sling in his hand, and an unshakable resolve in his eyes. Each step carried him closer to the valley's center, closer to the giant who mocked his God. But David knew the truth. This was not the giant's battlefield. This was the Lord's, and the battle was already decided. The sun was beginning its slow descent, painting the sky in bands of gold and crimson. The army stood silent now, two living walls of iron and leather, watching as one lone figure stepped forward from the Israelite line. David's sandals crunched on the dry earth. The sling hung loosely from his fingers, his pouch at his side heavy with the smooth stones taken from the brook. Every step carried him deeper into the shadows of the giants. From the Philistine side, a figure moved, massive, armored, unstoppable. The giant's steps were slow, deliberate, like a predator closing in on prey. When his eyes fell on David, a smirk twisted across his face. He saw no warrior, only a boy, and he laughed. And when the Philistine looked about and saw David, he disdained him, for he was only a youth, ruddy and good-looking. So the Philistine said to David, "Am I a dog that you come to me with sticks? Come to me, and I will give your flesh to the birds of the air and the beasts of the field." 1 Samuel chapter 17, verse 42 to 44. These words were meant to terrify. They did not. David's voice rose across the valley, not with the roar of anger, but with the certainty of truth. "You come to me with a sword, with a spear, and with a javelin. But I come to you in the name of the Lord of hosts, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defiled. This day the Lord will deliver you into my hand, and I will strike you and take your head from you, and all the earth may know that there is a God in Israel." 1 Samuel chapter 17, verse 45 to 47. The air in the valley grew heavy. Even the wind seemed to steal. Two figures faced each other, one clad in bronze and iron, the other in faith and leather. Goliath's laughter faded into a low growl. He lowered his spear, muscles coiling like a drawn bowstring. David reached into his pouch and closed his fingers around a single stone. The giant moved first, striding forward like a thunderstorm on legs. David ran towards him, feet light, heart ready, eyes fixed on the spot where his strike would fall. The valley, which for 40 days had known only taunts and fear, was about to witness the power of the living God. The valley shook with the sound of footsteps. Goliath's, heavy and thunderous. David's, swift and light. The giant's shadow stretched wide across the battlefield, but David ran straight into it. Every soldier on the hills held their breath. Every heartbeat seemed to echo in the still air. David's hand reached into the pouch. His fingers closed on the stone, smooth, cold, and perfect. He placed it into the sling, his arm already in motion. The leather cords blurred as they spun. Once, twice, 3 times. The sound cut through the air like the hum of an arrow. The shepherd's aim was steady, his faith unwavering. Then it flew. The stone tore through the air, faster than the eye could follow. It struck. The giant's roar caught in his throat. The bronze helmet could not protect him, for the stone found the single gap above his brow. So David prevailed over the Philistine with a sling and a stone, and struck the Philistine and killed him. But there was no sword in the hand of David. 1 Samuel chapter 17, verse 49. Goliath staggered, his massive frame swaying like a great cedar in a storm. His spear fell, and then the ground trembled as he collapsed, face first, into the dust. For 40 days his voice had filled the valley with taunts. Now there was only silence. David did not hesitate. He ran forward, climbed upon the fallen giant, and took Goliath's own sword from its sheath. The blade was heavy, but David lifted it high, then brought it down. The Philistine champion's reign of terror ended in an instant. From the hills of Israel came a roar unlike any heard before. A roar of triumph, of fate vindicated, of fear shattered. The Philistines turned and fled, their courage gone. For I will not trust in my bow, nor shall my sword save me. But you have saved us from our enemies, and have put to shame those who hated us. Psalms 44, verse 6 and 7. In the dust and stillness of the valley, David stood, not as a shepherd boy, but as the warrior of God. And the world would remember the day a giant fell, not by the strength of man, but by the power of the Lord Almighty. The giant lay still in the dust, but the battle was not yet over. The Philistines, struck with terror, turned to flee, and the men of Israel, those who had once trembled, now surged forward with a cry of vengeance and freedom. They pursued their enemies across the valley, chasing them all the way to the gates of Ekron. The valley that had been a prison of fear became the pathway of victory. When the last of the Philistine threat was scattered, the army returned. Their eyes fell upon the young man who had led them to triumph. David stood quietly, the sling still at his side, the giant sword in his hand. The people shouted his name, the soldiers grasped his shoulders, but David's eyes were lifted elsewhere, to the God who had delivered him. Our help is in the name of the Lord, who made heaven and earth. Psalm 124, verse 8. David was brought before King Saul once more, the head of Goliath carried in his grasp. Saul looked at the boy who had refused the king's armor, who had faced the champion of Gath without fear. "Whose son are you, young man?" Saul asked. David's answer was simple, yet it carried the weight of his journey. "I am the son of your servant, Jesse the Bethlehemite." In that moment, the story of David and Goliath was etched into the heart of Israel, not because a boy defeated a giant, but because faith defeated fear, because the living God proved once again that the battle belongs to him. So David prevailed over the Philistine with a sling and a stone, and there was no sword in the hand of David. 1 Samuel chapter 17, verse 50. And across the centuries, the valley still speaks. It speaks to the one facing impossible odds. It speaks to the weary hearts surrounded by giants. It whispers the truth that rang in David's heart that day. It is not the size of the enemy that matters. It is the size of your God. David walked out of the Valley of Elah not just as the victor of a single battle, but as the living proof that no force on earth can stand against the purposes of the Lord Almighty. The boy had become the warrior of God, and the God who delivered him still delivers today.